Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Skylar Fiction Show. I'm, of course, Skylar Fiction. Been about a week, man, since I've seen you folks. I'm glad to be here with you tonight. I'm glad here to be here with Dr. Josh Bowen, the Digital Hammurabi channel, which is always exciting. The last time I think we all watched, or you guys, the audience, watched my channel was when Mike Winger was on here a week ago. And, I spent some time with the family this week, took a little time off. Kids were off from school. It's family is important to me, and when I have that opportunity, I've got to spend time with them. But not Mike and I. Actually, Mike and I. I'm thinking of Mike Winger, Dr. Josh here. Dr. Josh and I have been kind of preparing some shows for you. This one's going to be a little bit more off on the cuff, but this show we're going to break this into three portions for our review of my conversation with Mike Winger. And I think this one's going to be about the first 20 minutes of the video, which is mostly talking about morality. And Josh has been doing a lot of prep, which I have to thank him for the slavery section that will be coming next week, maybe later on this week. We'll see what happens. But hey, I guess I should introduce you, Dr. Josh. Let you say hello. Tell us about your channel, where they can find you. Of course, it's in the description if you guys want to watch him. Anyways, Dr. Josh, say hello. Tell us about yourself before we get this going.
Hey, thank you, Skylar. I appreciate it and appreciate you having me on. Dr. Josh, Digital Hammurabi. Probably most of you know who I am, but my wife and I run an ancient Near Eastern channel called Digital Hammurabi, and we do a lot of Old Testament stuff as well. So that's why I'm here. And I just love coming on, talking about the Bible and ancient Near Eastern context for stuff. So I'm excited. Yeah, it should be a good night.
Why he's really here is because we love Dr. Josh. Isn't just his extensive background knowledge and his ability to read Hebrew and Greek and so many other things that he knows. But he's a great co-host here for the show. If you guys were interested, I had a very special person from the great debate community from our past making a video about me earlier tonight. True empiricism. Was like this doing a video review of one of my political videos. Check it out. Go give him some love. His channel's failing. He could probably use the help. He'll probably delete the video by the end of the night, so you may not have much of an opportunity. But hey, there's your rub there. True empiricism. Enjoy. I said your name on camera. All right. What else do I have to say? I think that's it. I don't have anything really planned this week. I do have a couple emails people have sent me that I have not responded to, and I feel terrible inside. I really do, folks. I'm going to get back to you. I had a couple interesting ones that were actually really fascinating that I just wanted to take the time to really get my thoughts out. So I didn't want to rush it. So that will be coming very, very soon. You'll get your emails. If you want to come on the show, SkylarFictionShow@gmail.com. And you can come on and talk to me. I think I'm going to be on Red Pill Religion's channel sometime in the next week and a half. We're trying to get something scheduled out. We'll see how that goes. All right. Without further ado, let's get this started. If you haven't watched my video, which I guess I should have put a link in the description, a conversation with Mike Winger, you should probably watch that first. There's no spoilers. Then come back and watch this review. If not, that's what we're doing. First part, I went ahead and set up the video to where we kind of we get past the pleasantries of introducing him, and we're going to go right to where the discussion had started. So let me screen share here. There we go. And Dr. Josh, if you can keep an eye on the chat a little bit, let me know if there's any audio problems or anything, but I think we should be okay.
Wonderful group of people.
All right. Whoops, sorry. All right, here we go.
All right, man. What kind of questions you got for me, brother? Okay, so I don't want to get into the weeds, but I do want to ask you about this because I think it's going to come up as a not a fluff issue, but a central issue. Because here's the thing, you said your favorite topic is morality.
Oh man, I totally messed this up. Hold on. Guys are supposed to be stop screen share. I'm supposed to be able to see my beautiful face as we do this, and you guys cannot see my beautiful face from there. So hold on a second. And hopefully that fan's not making too much noise. There's so much going on today, guys. I'm exhausted. I've been in the location of my job and been very, very busy the last couple of days. There we go. Let's see. There we go. There we go. All right, that's better. Sorry, folks. Technical difficulties. We're back on fucking track. All right, there we go.
And I thought, well, why don't we just, we'll probably spend time talking about that.
Sure.
So do you believe that there's, I think I know your answer here, but
can I say first, I know we just started the video, how surprised I am that Mike Winger chose to talk to me about morality. I really am totally surprised that he decided to do this. And like, hats off to you, man, for being brave and jumping into a topic that I argue a lot about. So I'm going to give credit where credit's due. Here's a point for Mike Winger for deciding to do this topic and ask me a question about it. I would never in a million years have thought he would go into morality, especially since with the whole debacle that was happening before, when I had asked him to talk about morality. All the videos are up. You can check out the past and what was happening with it. So
I want to let you say it. Do you believe there's such a thing as moral facts?
No, I'm an anti-moral realist. I don't believe in moral facts.
And now here's the thing. I'm actually with you, Skylar, on not overburdening our conversation, because I think you're with me here, with terminologies that are maybe unnecessary.
Sure. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, because I think that sometimes that's just unhelpful to the uninitiated, which most of us are. So anyhow, so you don't believe there's any such thing as real moral facts, which means that when you say you have like subjective morals, or basically you're just saying you have opinions about what you like and don't like. You might call that moral, but that doesn't mean it's actually really wrong or actually really right.
So, as I always do, I'd like to clarify what they really mean, Christians, when they say, is it really wrong or really right? Right? So, in the Christian worldview, morality is basically rooted in God's nature. Those things that are good are basically, it's the goodness of God's nature. Those things that are immoral are things that are opposed to God's very nature. Perfect example is lying. God is not a liar. Therefore, it's against God's nature to lie. Therefore, lying is immoral. It's a simple little example. When he talks about something, when we talk about moral facts and the context he's using in moral realism, he's saying that something is morally right or wrong regardless of if human beings exist. So if there were no human beings on the planet, certain things would still be moral or immoral because they are rooted in God's nature. Just want to clarify that for everybody as we watch, so we can further kind of understand what he's talking about here. Yeah, Josh, feel free if you have anything to say, jump in.
Yeah, I mean, just for clarity's sake, this is obviously not a strong suit of mine at all, but just so that you can tell me if I understand, and then maybe this will clarify it for, of course, everybody else probably already understands this better than I do, which is great. But if, right now, 21st century America, homosexuality is considered to be okay, objective morality would say, all right, if 2,000 years ago, homosexuality was a sin, it doesn't matter if we think it's okay now. Objective morality that's grounded in God's nature by that divine standard means that no matter what people think about it, it is sin. Is that correct?
That's exactly right.
Okay.
So yeah, it doesn't matter whether I think homosexuality is right or wrong. It is right or wrong because of God's very nature, which is it's weird when you really think about it, right? The way they do this, they think about this, because it doesn't really make much sense in certain things when we talk about sin, right? Especially homosexuality, the one you brought up, which is a great example. Like, what is it about God's nature that has anything to do with heterosexuality or homosexuality, right? Is he a sexual being? Does he have a proclivity towards certain genders, like sexes? Is he a gender? So it's kind of funny in that sense, but you're absolutely right. Is the way that it never changes, and this is why I always use I go to the most extreme things in the Bible, like 1 Samuel, just because it's clear cut. Is because I can say something like, "Is it always wrong to kill healthy babies?" And the Christian is not going to be able to say yes, because in certain circumstances, when God ordains it or orders it, it is perfectly moral to harm or kill. I got to remember, I'm going to get my demonetized every time I say this. So every time I use the word harm children, that's why it's contradictory. So either his nature is unchanging, right? It would never be okay in that situation, or it's just okay sometimes to do it. It's not an always wrong type of thing. Which is funny because when you start getting into the context of things, and when he starts talking about context, I think it's kind of ironic because really there's no context. It's just God's nature, not God's nature, just God's very being, as far as that goes. So yeah, so that's the way. That's a great question. All right, Sharon.
Yeah, I guess basically yes. To be honest with you, I just think it's just based on emotions and opinions. When I hear often Christians argue morality, they'll say something's actually right or wrong, right? I don't know what that really means. I know sometimes that Christians will argue that that's like they root morality basically within God's nature. They'll say that something's right or wrong regardless of human minds, human opinion. And I've just never.
It's kind of funny because Skylar here in the video would have just answered your question. Like literally almost giving the word for word answer I just gave.
Or seen anything like that within the world that I live.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know how. I'm not sure how you would experience it, except that you have this strong perception that there's moral truth. So, for instance, like I'll use my wallet.
Okay, let's just pause there. You have a strong perception that there's moral truth. So you just feel it. You just feel that something's right or something's wrong, which goes along with the same kind of idea of subjective morality. Is the idea that your morals are based on your emotions and your opinions. It's rooted in you through empathy, your human experience. Sometimes things are taught to you, but it's about how you feel. So it is kind of ironic that when Christians try to argue that morality is objective, that it's that there are real moral facts, that they're basing it off of how they feel. It's kind of ironic.
As an example.
Yeah, please.
So I'm going to tell you that my wallet is a leather wallet. That was a gift from a friend who went to London and came back and gave me this really nice leather wallet. Before that, I had a Velcro one with Spider-Man on it that always embarrassed me when I was paying for things. And I say it's a leather wallet. Now, my opinion is obviously that it is a leather wallet. It's true that that's my opinion, but in this case, there's an actual fact, like an objective fact about the wallet. Now, let's suppose your opinion is, I think Mike's blowing smoke. I don't think it's leather. It's fake. It's pleather. It's the other stuff. So that would be you and me having a difference of opinion, and this is super basic. So forgive me. I'm not trying to talk down to you. That's not at all my goal. I think it's important to kind of just be as clear as possible.
Don't worry about it. You're all good.
Okay. So, but there's not a moral, but there's a literal fact. There's an actual objective fact about the wallet. It either is or isn't leather, and we have our opinions about it. Sure. So with morality, that's my perspective. Is you have an opinion about morals. I have an opinion about morals. But there's an actual fact about morals.
Okay, perfect. Let's stop screen sharing real quick so we can chat about this for just a moment. So let's think about what he's saying here. Okay, here's the problem with Mike's argument holding a leather wallet up, right? We can test the leather wallet to see if it's actually leather. We have a way that's measurable. What you can't do is measure how homosexuality is immoral. How are you going to measure that? How are you going to demonstrate that? How are you going to tell me that it's actually immoral, right? So I think about it, and it's the frustrating. This is why it's at one point I'll ask him, well, can you go ahead and just demonstrate it? Because my argument would be done if you could actually demonstrate the morals that you're arguing for are real, are objective, mind independent, okay? But he can't do that. All he can do is say, we're basically, and we're going to get into this kind of weird kind of analogy he does here in just a moment. There's no way to measure whether morality is an actual real thing. And especially when you really get the ontology of it, what is it rooted in? It's rooted in God's nature. You would basically have to prove God exists in order to prove that morals exist. Any thoughts, my man, Dr. Josh?
I mean, and again, I feel like I say this probably more than I need to, but this is clearly not my area of expertise. So these are just sort of my thoughts on this, being exposed to it. I think so. There's a comment in the chat by a person that we're very familiar with. The question Christianity answers, which your worldview cannot, is why do we feel moral opinions? And I'm not a biologist or an evolutionary biologist specifically, but I suspect just given what I've heard, that there are other options for why it is that we feel things are right and wrong, if we want to use that terminology. Things are beneficial to us and things are not beneficial to us and to those around us. And I suspect that that's not something that only Christianity can answer. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I agree. I think that, listen, if you're asking me how we developed empathy, how we developed emotions, I can't tell you that. Right now, there's lots of good scientific theory behind that. You can look it up yourself. But simply just saying God did it isn't an answer for me. And I feel like, once again, if I were to debate anybody about morality, especially Christians, I'm going to just point out the moral contradictions of your God over and over again and show you that it's not possible that he can exist. Yeah, that's the thing, is like why we feel it's like asking, why do you feel the way you do? It's like, why do I like Coca-Cola? Why do I like pizza? Like, there's lots of reasons why I might like pizza or Coca-Cola. It has to do with evolution, biology, things along that line.
I mean, so cultural norms. I mean, let's take it out of something that's less. So take it to something that's less controversial. You know, like, why is it that I like Diet Coke? You know, or why do I like coffee? Right? Or why do I like black coffee? Maybe that's a better question. Now, the reason that I like black coffee, at least in part, sorry, I think I gotta open the door for my cat to get out.
You're all good.
Is that my grandfather used to drink black coffee, and for me, growing up watching him drink black coffee, it was like a source of pride for him. You know, somebody'd go to a restaurant and a waitress would say, "You want cream and sugar?" No, cream and sugar. Yeah. And so it was, you know, of course I don't like cream and sugar. So now, like, cream and sugar and coffee? No, I mean, what? That's ridiculous. But what's interesting is that almost every day when I go to Starbucks in the morning, I get a cappuccino, which has a bunch of milk in it, right? And so I guess what I'm saying is that so many of these things, I suspect, without having the expertise, I suspect that these are cultural norms, right? These are things that we become accustomed to them, or they benefit us in a certain way, be it psychologically or physically, and those become the things because I look at this, if we talk about intuition, I look at geography, and I know this is something that isn't obviously coming from me, but just from what I've heard. I think it's true. You look at geographically, what groups of people believe that certain things are moral. For example, if you go to Haiti, there are certain things that you can do on the street that you can't do in America, right? They're considered fine there, and they're considered immoral here. Why is that? And why is it localized like that? I think those are strong indications as well. So.
Well, yeah, you know, absolutely. There's lots of, there's a lot of stuff that we're just taught. And I bring it up at some point in the conversation with Mike about homosexuality. And it's one of those things where there was no good reason for me to be against people being gay at one point in my life. You know, I didn't really know any gay people. I've seen one in high school. This was the 90s. Like, this was still, people still weren't completely out by then at that point. It was still kind of, people were very much shamed all the time. So, you know, there was no real good reason for me to think that that was immoral or anything. The only reason I ever thought it was immoral is because I was taught that at church and I read the Bible. So it's funny to me that, you know, people don't see that. They don't see how a lot of this is just, you know, what you're raised in. It's like racism, right? Like, same kind of idea. People, you know, people come up, sometimes become racist due to their families. Their families teach them to use words that aren't appropriate. Derogatory words towards people of other races. They tell them that they're lazy, they're terrible people, and you just, like, if your whole life it's just told to you over and over again by people you trust and you love, why wouldn't you believe that, right? And then you have to undo that to your mind, and that's not a simple thing. Like, it's incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
All right. All right, let's go to this next section. Let's keep listening.
What's odd to me about your perspective is you're like, it's as though there is no wallet, like there is no spoon, like it doesn't exist at all, and yet you still have opinions about it.
Well, tell me how you can measure a moral to show that it exists, right? Like when you hold up that wallet, we have different ways that we could test and measure to see if that wallet actually exists. When you talk about something being wrong, basically outside of human opinion and outside of human minds, how would we possibly, besides like what you alluded to, which was saying just a strong feeling towards it, basically. So I don't know. Yeah, go ahead.
Here's the thing though. It's how you measure it, or how I would go about proving that morals are true is kind of a separate issue from this. I'm just looking for clarity on your stance, because in my opinion,
see, this is where I really don't know what he was going for here, because this is really strange. The line of questioning he made already was what I was kind of addressing, and now I don't know what he's quite trying to get to understand about me. I think he thinks he has a specific point that he's going to push, but it isn't going to work well. But we'll see as we kind of keep going.
This is a really big deal for later on down the road when you start using moral arguments against Christianity, because you don't see morality as a discussion about the wallet, right? You see it as a discussion about like the monster under my bed, where I'm like, well, to me, the monster is blue. And you go, well, to me, the monster is green. And I go, but I think there's a real monster. And you go, there is no monster. How do you prove that monster is even there? And I'm just saying, if you don't think it's there, why do you think it's green? Like, if you don't think morals are real, then why do you have opinions about morality?
So, all right, let's talk about this, I guess, for a second here. It's not opinions about morality. My opinions are the morality in a sense. My emotions or opinions are what create the moral system that we're talking about. We're not arguing over, we're not looking at an object. Like I'm not looking at something, like a vape pen or something. I'm not looking at a vape pen and being like, what is this? Like, there's someone else. We're not doing that. I've clearly articulated what morality is. I've defined what the Christian believes what morality is, the ontology of it. And we have two different definitions of it. So we're not arguing over which one is right, because this isn't a right or, I don't think this is a right or wrong question. I hope I'm articulating this right. I'm simply trying to explain that like what he's claiming is moral or is morality doesn't exist. And that if he has a way to demonstrate that it does exist, I'm happy to hear it, right? But they're not going to be able to, most of the time, I should say. I'd love to get a Christian on who could actually demonstrate it. Please email me, skylarfictionshow@gmail.com. We'll make that happen. But if you could demonstrate it actually exists, that would be fantastic. But they can't. It's just going to be just trying to basically disprove my worldview instead of demonstrating their own. All right. I'm sure this will get better.
Perhaps I should clarify a little bit. So when I argue morality against Christians, I'm not arguing whether my morality is better than their morality, or like making everybody look at your mean, bad God kind of thing, like the big meaning here, right? What I'm doing is I'm doing an internal critique where I step into your worldview to show how your God is basically morally contradictory, right? So like I could go through examples of that within the Bible, but that's what I'm actually doing. So it's not just to say, hey, obviously the opinions aren't right or wrong. That's why they're called opinions, basically. But when I make moral arguments, it's either first to demonstrate that there's I don't see any evidence for actual moral facts, or to show that the Christian God is in fact morally contradictory.
Okay, so if you do it merely as an internal critique, then at some point you step back out of the critique and you get back into your worldview and you look at those things that you said were morally wrong, and you look at them and you have to say to yourself, they're not really wrong. I mean, they're not really right. That was just an internal critique, in my view.
No, see, this is where he's misunderstanding. You know what? I don't think I want the screen sharing again, so you guys couldn't see that. All right, so I think the issue is he doesn't understand what I'm saying here at this point, and that's that. Like, I'm not looking at the Christian God and saying these things are wrong under my worldview. I mean, you could ask me that, and I'll tell you, yes, under my worldview, under my moral opinions, they're wrong. But that's not what I'm doing. It roots back to, and I recommend this for anybody who's ever debating Christians on morality. It's talking about what morality is. And morality, according to a Christian, to repeat it again, is God's nature, right? And if I point out contradictory things, that means God's nature is contradictory, right? So when I say that it's part of God's nature that he loves children, Yet, at the same time, he has them executed and harmed when he had the ability not to. I'm showing you contradiction. If I were to show you that it says God doesn't lie, but then I showed Jesus lying, I'm showing you a contradiction, and showing you a contradiction within the very nature of what you root morality. So this is where I think he's not understanding what's going on. He thinks we're still having an argument about what morality is, and that's not what we're arguing. I think there's a lot of Christians, I think, make this mistake. They think I'm just simply pointing at Christianity and saying that's bad under my worldview. No, that's pointless. It would be pointless for me just to tell a Christian what my opinions are about the Christian God. I'm doing it to make an argument and to show the contradictoriness of his nature. Okay, yeah, that's good. What do you, any thoughts, Josh, before I keep playing?
Yeah, I mean, just a couple of things. When I watched this, I remember thinking about this monster under the bed thing. I remember thinking to myself, I wonder if, and you can tell me if this is way off or not with what you were thinking or trying to get at.
Please.
I don't think that you would argue or try to say something about the color or whatever, anything descriptive about some monster under the bed. I think that what you would say, given that analogy, if Mike were to say, I say the monster under the bed is green, you would say, well, there's no monster under the bed that's causing you to be afraid. Your head and things that are going on with you psychologically, there's empty space under your bed. It's dark. You're afraid. And so your mind is creating, you're trying to have a rational or come to grips with why it is that you're afraid. It must be something under that bed is generating that fear. But in reality, there's nothing under that bed that's generating fear. It's inside of your own head. And if I come into your room and it's dark and I've just watched a scary movie or something, and I think that there's a monster under the bed, there's no monster there. It's that our individual brains are constructing something in response to, what's going on around us. Okay. And so is that a fair way to use that analogy?
No, I think you're right. I think he's created a monster under the bed that, to some degree, it's funny because, okay, so when a Christian reads out, because I don't want to just put it on Mike. I think this is in general to Christianity. So I think, and Christians don't realize that they have their own moral systems that they've created, right? And you can see it when atheists argue the Bible with them, right? Like, for instance, the slavery thing, which we're not going to really talk too much about today, but we're going to have a whole episode on. You look at the slavery thing, right? Mike's instinct was to say that it's not real slavery in the Bible because he feels slavery is morally wrong, which is good on him for thinking that, right?
Yeah, definitely.
But what the Bible says is something different. And now he's got to figure out a way to kind of like square that off and be like, well, wait a minute, it's not really saying that it's there, right? He's going on his instincts, what he actually emotionally feels that it's wrong, slavery. So when he talks about this monster under the bed, it's literally, I don't even know how to say it. No, I think you articulated it well. I'm not even going to try to rephrase it.
So to try to do it, I don't know, apples to apples here. If what we're trying to say is, why do we have these, let's use the term intuitions, right? Why do we have these internal responses? I don't know how they actually would define intuition, which is fine. I mean, I don't have to. But if we're trying to explain why we have this feeling, we have this reaction, we have this inborn thing, response maybe to certain situations, we posit that stance, objective morality, at least in that way, seems to posit a deity. A deity causes those things. Okay. So in that sense, with the monster under the bed, if we have an akin response, it would be fear. Right? If we go with that. So the monster under the bed, as long as it's not from like Monsters Incorporated or something, because I guess that wouldn't be scary. I could picture Mike Wazowski with his microphone doing stand-up comedy anyway. But let's say it's actually a scary monster under the bed. We're trying to explain why it is that we're afraid, right? And if you go into your 5-year-old and say, why are you scared? There's a monster under my bed, right? You would say, no, honey, there's no monster under your bed. you're just imagining things, right? Your brain is doing things in response to your surroundings and in response to what you've been exposed to. And I think that's where the analogy is. So while and I'm not trying to say that Christians think that there are monsters under the bed. That's not what I'm trying to say. But what I'm saying is, with that analogy, positing something external that is causing this reaction is what I'm seeing. And I could be totally wrong about that. I am very open to that, but that's what I see.
I think you're exactly right. It's basically the monster in bed is a way of explaining hard to deal with issues in a lot of sense. The same way, like people who originally founded different religions and gods, it was a way of explaining the world around them without understanding what it is. All right, let's go back to this share, and this time I'll actually click the button. There we go.
There's nothing right or wrong about rape or slavery or any of those issues at all. Only really the Christian could look at his own view and see a problem with it. But as a person who believes morals don't exist, like, I look at it and I actually don't have a problem. Like, does that?
So there's a big issue with this already. So just because something isn't real in the sense that Mike is using the word real when it comes to morality doesn't mean it's not important or doesn't have value to me, right? So just because rape isn't real in the sense that he's arguing rape is wrong because it's part of God's nature, doesn't mean that I don't have any value in my own emotional attachments and opinions, right? So like, you look at something like democracy. I use the example of politics. Like, I think democracy is a great idea, right? But is it objectively like the best idea? Is there a way we can measure what the best idea is how it's just like, we still value democracy even though it's not real in the same sense Mike is trying to argue morality, right? So something doesn't have to be. In fact, I think it's actually much more valuable, to be honest with you. I don't understand, like, if morality isn't rooted in our actual being as being a human being and with our emotions and opinions, it's just somebody else's morality. It's just God's morality. I don't see why, because I have to follow, his nature or his rules based on his nature. I don't see how that's any more valuable. That's just basically a dictator saying, hey, do this, and if you don't do this, I'm going to punish you and send you to a place of eternal torment. So I actually think that people who have morality based in their emotions and opinions, that's actually a really good thing. You should find value in it, right? They're like, I've heard Christians make this argument, well, why don't you go out and rape people? Well, because I don't want to go out and rape people. I don't like rape. I don't want to harm other people because inside of me, I feel harming people is awful, right? I feel slavery is awful. I feel hurting children is awful. I have empathy. I care about people, right? You can't make that same argument as a Christian. You can't make an argument that it's always wrong to harm children. You can't make an argument that it's always wrong to sell women into slavery and treat them as property. So it always cracks me up when they use this line of argument, when they try to be like, well, why, basically, like, it's not real. Why does it matter? Opinions matter. Like, go argue with a diehard Star Wars fan about something sometime and tell me if their opinions don't matter. Tell me, like, a hardcore Trump follower opinions don't matter to that Trump supporter, right? It's opinions matter in life. We find value in them. People die for their opinions, right? Anyways, all right.
I mean, this might not be a good analogy, but let's take, like, if you and I decide we're going to make up a new board game, right? And we're gonna play Shoots in Candyland. I don't know. Instead of Shoots and Ladders or Candyland. So Shoots in Candyland. I don't know.
It's like the off-brand. They're like,
right. So when you buy Kmart, I get to go once, and then you get to go twice, and then I get to go twice, and you get to go once, right? Those are our rules, right? That's one of our rules. Well, once we agree upon that, then while there's no like thing out there called the rules of Shoots and Candyland, right? We have agreed that these are the rules that we're going to abide by. Well, if I go once and you go twice and then I go 5 times, you're going to say, whoa, that's not right. That's not correct. Well, I can't turn to you and say, well, now there's no actual, there's no thing out there floating in the air that's called the rules of, we made that up. And so it doesn't matter what you think. No, we've agreed that these are the rules. These are the standards that we're abiding by. And I think that's the point, just thinking about this from a non-professional standpoint. So again, I could be wrong, but just thinking about this from that perspective, we as a society, for example, have agreed upon the way that we're going to behave around one another, right? Now, those rules, societal rules, norms, whatever you want to call them, change, right? They adapt. But we agree, all right, we're going to do these things. For example, when you're in school, we agree we're not going to use profanity. When you're in elementary school, the kids aren't going to use profanity. Is it objectively wrong to use profanity? No, but there's a reason that we have them not do it. They don't understand profanity yet. They don't understand when it's appropriate in social situations, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, but those are rules. It's not that there's some objective rule out there that says no profanity in elementary school, or objective in the sense that, I hate using the word, but that we're talking about it, a thing out there, because if you go to another country, they might not have any problem, Yeah, anyway, that's a
great example too. Like, you think about what's the wrongness about using the word fuck, right? Like, what's the wrongness part of it? It's just how people feel about it. If they feel it's a word that offends them, if they feel it's just something that they don't want to say, like it causes something that it just triggers something in them, right? So that's, I think, is actually a really good example to use, because I think that's something when you look at society, you can see why some people cursing is nothing. Like, I don't really, I try not to curse in front of my children. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I try not to. And I certainly won't let them use that language because of rules. Like I said, the rules of our society. I can't have them using bad language in school. I'm not going to have my kids be the one who teaches it to other children. I don't have a problem with when they get a little older that they use curse words or anything. Like, there's nothing actual wrong. There's no wrongness property about it. It's just the limitations we put on it as human beings.
And I guess that's my point. And I promise I'll stop talking. But like with profanity, I feel like it's a good example. The reason that I don't want my 11-year-old using profanity is not because I think there's some objective wrongness with it, right? It's just that she has not been exposed to enough social situations to know it's okay to say damn now, and it's not okay to say it damn here, right? She hasn't had that type of societal exposure. It takes time. It's like drinking alcohol, I guess. I mean, it's probably another thing that's similar to that. There's a reason that we set that age, because you have to have a certain amount of maturity, a certain amount of life experience. And I mean, of course, that's all debatable and flexible, but the point is, I think at the bottom, that's why I don't want my 5-year-old using profanity right now, because she doesn't know, what if you stub your toe and she lets expletives fly, all kinds of expletives fly. That's a gross overreaction, right? Whereas, anyway, so I guess that's what I would say about something like profanity. It's that there needs to be a certain amount of life exposure, societal exposure, and maturity to know when to use it. So
it's funny because, like, true empiricism, the guy I was talking about earlier, he's like, rules of society equal moral standards. They do sometimes actually equal moral standards occasionally, because let's get a good example of it. Women having rights in modern day American culture is something that has to do with our culture, right? It doesn't always. I think culture has a part in it. I think really comes down to the individual a lot. But if you're in a culture, like, let's say you were raised in an Islamic culture, a very extreme Islamic culture, do you think you're going to have the same respect for women as someone who grows up in American culture? Do you think that, like, your opinions on what people wear and what women have to be covered are going to be the same as they do in American culture? You think I would probably view, like, you look at Christians, a lot of Christians say, not all, there are a lot of Christians that don't have a problem with homosexuality, that they're pro-gay rights and things like that. But it's very different from society to society. And the problem is, obviously individuals come together to make society, large groups of people, and there are cultural normatives and things that are within the culture. Anyways, I'm not gonna get too much, but it should be pretty fucking obvious at this point with it. Oh, shit. Okay, let's go back here. Screen share.
that sound,
No,
is
I
that
think
consistent to you?
No, I think the problem is like it's not about what I believe. My morals are completely irrelevant to when I make a moral argument, right? Like once again, I'm not trying to prove to you that my morals are correct. What I'm trying to show you is that the Christian God, Yahweh's morals are contradictory, right? And the fact that there's no way to actually demonstrate that these moral facts exist.
Well,
So
two really different issues.
yeah. So
It's not. See, that's the thing. I don't know why he's calling these two. That's the things I'm articulating to him. I don't know why he thinks this is two different issues. It's got to be the only thing that he doesn't understand morality. He doesn't understand what it means to be anti-moral realist versus a moral realist. That's the only thing I can imagine why he's not understanding what's going on here.
So I'm not actually the only time I'm ever going to tell you something about my morality is if you actually ask me. So and then when you say something,
well, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I don't want to interrupt you.
No, so what I would say too. So if you ask me like, is slavery wrong? I'm going to say yeah, because based on my opinions, I don't think people should be considered property, right? Now, in a Christian worldview, you guys can't say that. Well, even Christian Old Testament worldview, you guys can't say that owning people as property is wrong when God basically condones it, or other things I could point to within the Old Testament. That's just a quick example of that.
So when you say it's wrong to own people as property, from your worldview, not mine,
based on my opinion, yeah.
You think it's really wrong?
No. It's my. So let me give you a definition. My definition of
I think he just can't follow it. I'm not being mean to Mike, but I think he doesn't talk morality much, or something's going on to where he doesn't understand what moral realism is versus anti-realism.
I mean, it is a difficult topic. I mean, there's no question about it.
Oh, but totally, definitely a difficult topic and not an easy thing to understand. But he actually confused me because I'm trying to figure out like where I don't understand what he's asking, what's going on. Like I thought I wasn't being articulate, but the more I listen to this, I think he's just not connecting the dots here. But we'll see.
Morality is the distinction between right and wrong as it relates to conscious beings. Right meaning actions that positively affect myself and other conscious beings. Wrong being actions that negatively affect myself and other conscious beings when it can't be avoided.
So I give a clear definition of what morality is, just so it's on the table. He knows what I'm talking about when I say morality.
So when I simply refer to something being right or wrong, I'm just explaining to you my morality system, how I define morality within my worldview.
Okay, but you would agree that you're basically defining the monster under the bed. You're giving a definition of something you think doesn't exist.
Well, no. I believe morality is subjective. I believe in subjective morals. It's just not objective. It's not. Morals aren't real in the same context which you would argue it.
Okay, this is where I think the conversation gets. This is the nitty gritty right here. This moment.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is really important personally.
Mm-hmm.
When you say subjective,
mm-hmm.
it almost sounds like what you mean is that it's somehow real.
No, that's not what I mean at all.
See, I think this is. He doesn't understand the terms moral realism versus anti-realism. I think is what the issue is here. Because I think it's pretty clear when we're talking about morals being real, we're talking them being real outside of human minds, as far as that goes. Yeah, I think this is just where it's a disconnect. I think we're not connecting here at this point in the conversation. I'm not just saying this to bash Mike by any means. Please understand, audience. I'm not like, listen, there's been plenty of conversations about morality I've had in my early days here that I wasn't as thought out. I didn't quite understand everything that I was saying. I didn't understand what all these terms meant. But that's what I would say about that. All right, let me keep going with this so we get through this. If not, I'll be talking all night. All right.
But okay, so then subjective meaning.
We're straight up saying right now, morals are not real. Okay. They are simply opinions based on your emotions and your experiences.
Okay, but if they're opinions about, like, let's say that morality is the monster under the bed, if we can use that analogy, okay? So some of us, we say, hey, we all have this sense that there's a monster under the bed. Like, we really think it's really there. And then Skylar comes.
We all don't have that feeling. There is no real morality, not in the sense that Mike's using it. People just feel that things are right or wrong. Maybe he's thinking in the context of like having some kind of moral system is real. Right? Like then I think this makes a little bit more sense. Like, but just because you have a moral system doesn't mean it's real in the way that he's saying it, like it being rooted in God's nature. I hope I'm articulating this right. It makes sense.
So let me ask you a question, if I could. So thinking about this this monster under the bed thing. So I don't know if, let's say, for example, that given our evolutionary biology, sorry, people in the chat that don't think that evolution is a thing, just go with me for it, for the sake of argument. Let's say that given our evolutionary track and our development, whatever, our sense of danger or whatever, fight or flight, I don't know what you would call it. I don't know enough about it, but our sense of something, you know, protecting ourselves makes it so that when we're kids and we're in a dark room with a big space under our bed, that we have this natural feeling that there's something under there that's going to get us, and we become afraid of it, right? Well, if we all have, I mean, you see this with kids all the time, right? I mean, if we all have this idea that there's something in that mirror, or there's something under the bed, or there's something in my closet, right? Does that mean that there's something there? I mean, with this analogy, that doesn't mean that there's an objective monster under the bed, an objective, like a real monster in the closet. And I don't think that going with your intuition, my 5-year-old's intuition, that there's a monster in that closet it would be wise to say, oh, let me pull out my 45 like Major Payne did and put 5 rounds in the closet, right? If he's still in there, he ain't happy.
Yeah, exactly. You're exactly right. That's the point. Yeah, it's like, just because you once, and it's funny that he keeps using like, we feel this. It's like, you can feel, like, people feel things all the time. People feel that X, Y, and Z, but it doesn't make it actually true. I think you hit the nail on the head. I gotta run to the restroom real quick. Josh, I'm gonna ask you a question.
Sure.
Talk to my audience for just like 30 seconds to a minute. Josh, tonight's question: is a hot dog a sandwich? Go.
Oh man. You know, this isn't going to answer the question, but it's funny. There's somebody called Perry Grip. And I'm really sorry if you've had an earworm from Perry Grip and I've just reignited it. But there are songs like Space Unicorn and Breakfast Burrito. These are songs that we play on our phones so that our 9-month-old, when we're changing his diaper, won't roll out of the way. But we were playing one today, and there's like a little playlist, and one of them is called Eat a Sandwich, I think is what it's called. And I didn't see it. Megan saw the video, but she said the whole thing's about eat a sandwich, and it was a Frankfurter that was singing the song. So I don't know if that's a coincidence or not, or if that's divine intervention that it was a Frankfurter singing the sandwich song. But
well, we've answered that question for you folks. So I hope you guys that age-old question, is a hot dog a sandwich, has been answered by Josh tonight. All right, let's go back to this bit. We're gonna get through this. All right.
Comes in the room, and people in your camp in this area, and they go, guys, there's no monster under the bed. You're all debating over a description of a thing that doesn't exist. And then you go on to say, in my view, this is what the monster looks like. And that's what it sounds like. It sounds like it's an internal contradiction from your worldview.
No, I think the problem is we have two different definitions of morality is the issue here. You have a definition of morality that's completely different than mine. So it's not like there is no such thing as a true morality. We're just talking like I said, what morality is to me is distinctions right and wrong based on emotions, opinions. What morality is to a Christian is God's will. I don't know your particular view on morality, but the typical view is that morality is that, right or wrong, but that right or wrong is based by God's very, very nature, basically. So that is against God's very nature is immoral. That is for God's art. That would be the easiest way, and that doesn't.
So you have nature. Yeah. So your description in this case of this, call it the monster under the bed. I feel like this analogy might help just make it simple, because morality is such a.
But when you say monster, all you're saying is my opinion. So basically, what you're referring to is my opinion when you say the monster under the bed.
Oh no! See, there's a difference. See, your opinion about the monster is different than the monster.
Well,
we all agree.
There's no monster.
Yeah, I'm not having an opinion about the monster. I'm saying that morality is based on emotions and opinions, and that's where he's just not connecting it here. So we're not. My moral opinions aren't about what the monster is. My morality is just based on emotions and opinions. All right.
There is no monster.
There is no monster.
Morality. In this case, morality.
what you would be referring to as morality doesn't exist.
Yes,
that's what I'm saying.
And okay, and that to me that's really clear. But when you go on to describe your version of morality, you're describing your version of something that you say doesn't exist.
No, subjective morality exists.
That's just pretend, though, right? Like you're just pretending things.
No, it's subjective morality. You don't think people have subjective morality in life?
I think subjective morality means that you're pretending something is wrong, but there's no actual quality of wrongness that it truly has.
Define wrong for me.
Having a
See, now this is really important. We need to pay attention to what's going on here as we talk here. Oh, come on, stop screen sharing. It's important that we talk about what's going on here. So I'm getting him to define his terms now, because now I gave a clear definition of what right and wrong is, right? Because he thinks that I'm still, when I say something's right or wrong, I'm referring to what he believes. And obviously we don't believe the same thing. So it's really important you pay attention to some of what goes on here, and you'll kind of see where a lot of this disconnect happens, and where I think that he's just not understanding these definitions.
Do you mind if I just, because there's something going on in the chat, and I just again I'm going to use an analogy that's I don't know that this is right. This is just coming from me, right? So True said, then nothing can ever really be immoral. I think this is the crux, right? The debate is not whether, okay, the rules of let's just say of chess, the rules of chess, right? We have all agreed that there was no game of chess before. Then we all somebody created the game of chess, and everybody agreed these are the rules of the game of chess. The pawns move this way, the rooks move that way. You can't go taking your knight and going, 9 spaces up diagonally, because that's against the rules. Let's change, for example, here. Let's exchange, if we can, morality with the rules, right? Because that's what I feel like this is similar. The rules of chess. Let's go with morality. We have all agreed in this particular society on our rules of chess, on our rules of morality, right? Thank you, sweetheart. How we should behave around one another, right? And in that sense, sure, those rules, having come from us, are now outside of us. And I would say in that sense, they're objective, right? But it's what is their basis? Where did they come from, right? And it sounds like what Mike is arguing is that they're coming from this being, this divine being that has generated them, right? And now they're objective. Fine, they're objective, but they're grounded in him. And what I'm saying is that we as a society, as individual cultures, as individual groups, as two people together, we have a married couple, for example, can have a different morality set for their marriage, right? Because we have determined that here, this is what we agree upon as morally right and wrong, right? So let's take something, maybe that would be controversial. Let's say a couple has an open marriage, right? Well, if one couple says, nope, you can't have sex outside of this relationship, and then somebody goes and have sex outside of the relationship, that's immoral, according to those two, right? Because they've agreed that that's wrong to do. However, if you have a couple that says, nope, open relationship is great, and the guy goes out or the girl goes out and have sex with somebody else, well, that's not immoral based on their standard, right? They've created that standard. And I think that's the point. So to those people, that standard is objective. It exists outside of them in that sense, in the sense that the rules of chess exist. And but that's the point. So when I see this comment that nothing can ever be really immoral, well, it depends on what you mean. By
real, basically, like, what is it you mean by
that's right?
Really immoral, right? Things can be immoral under my moral system. Things can be in the rules of the rule game or against the rules in the game that we create. It's about when you so they're never like when they always make so rape isn't really wrong. Like, why does it have to be rooted in God's nature in order for it to have value as not being something we should do, right? Why can't empathy be my basis, my emotions, and because I don't want other people to be harmed, that be the valuable reason why you shouldn't rape people?
Yeah, why is it not valuable that if we as a society say stealing from people bad, right? Why does that no longer have value, right? And again, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said that even though a Christian that holds this viewpoint would hold that God is that objective standard of morality from his nature. Even those individuals would say that they come to the text with, wait a minute, that condoning of slavery there, I have to figure out why it is that that's not really what that is, because that doesn't sit well with me. Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
The second Samuel thing, why does it not sit well with you that God would hurt a baby in order to punish the sins of the father? Like, that shouldn't sit well with you as a human being, and it doesn't. And that's why people need to make excuses for it, or why it was perfectly moral of God to do so. That's why you have apologetics. All right.
Moral, having like a negative moral quality, you know.
Okay, what does that mean? A negative moral quality?
I'm not sure how to define the definition for you.
No,
I'm not sure the best way to define that.
The problem is I don't understand what you mean. Then what is a
you really know?
Moral? No, I don't understand what you mean. A negative moral quality. What does that mean?
Perhaps I could say it.
What's funny is he's trying to avoid using God here, even though that's what his very moral nature is rooted in. So, like, when I ask you why, what part of it, I think too, is I don't know about Mike. He may have studied up on this a little bit before, but most Christians can't tell you why something's right or wrong unless they do something simple. They're like, well, God made the rules and we need to follow the rules. If God says it, it's right. If God says it's wrong, basically. But when I ask him to define, what's right or wrong, he says, negative moral values or something. And I'm like, well, what the hell is that? Right? What does it mean to have a negative moral value as far as that goes?
An action that violates what is good. Maybe I can put it that way.
So I don't understand what you mean by good. When I say good or bad, I'm just relating to
I feel like you do, and you're just trying to
I know what
push me to a corner.
No, I know what you mean by good. You're talking about God's nature. What I mean by good or bad is just simply, it's like me saying, Star Wars is the best movie ever.
Okay.
So I don't know. So when you refer to you're basically just telling me that, of course, an opinion can't be right or wrong. It's just an opinion.
No, okay, opinions exist, right?
And that's
if I have an opinion about
there you go, that clears it all up. So opinions exist, and what morality is to me is my opinion.
So you substitute the monster under the bed for an opinion about the monster, even though the monster doesn't exist, but my opinion about it exists, and I'm going to use that
the problem
in real life.
That just all fell flat on its face. I don't even need to say much about that. Just listen to that again, audience, if you need to. But it wasn't even coherent.
A monster that you keep referring to is the problem. You keep saying there's some kind of monster, but there is no monster. And I'm not talking about some kind of monster that you create.
So, do you have any other areas of life where you say, I have strong opinions about something I think doesn't exist?
I have strong opinions about something that doesn't exist. Well, my morality exists. Morality is a concept of the mind.
Okay, but so if I have a concept in my mind,
that concept exists within my brain. Yeah,
play on that. Like if I have a concept in my head of like this 80-foot tall hamburger with extra pickles on it, like In-N-Out style, with dripping with yummy sauce and all that.
It'd be kind of awesome. 80-foot hamburger, cheeseburger. Maybe get rid of the pickles. I don't really like pickles on my burger, but I'm with Mike so far.
I like mine with lettuce and tomato, Heinz 57, and French fried potatoes.
Does it actually exist? Does the hamburger exist?
Well, the concept, the imagination of your mind exists. It's a concept. It's an idea. It doesn't actually exist within our world.
So it has like no real applicability to life.
No, absolutely. Your opinions definitely have applicability to your life. Obviously, you live your life based on your opinions and your emotions. So it's certainly, I'm married because I love my wife. I have the emotion of love towards my wife. I take care of my children because I love my children. I vote for certain political parties because they represent the values that I have as an American. So yeah, your opinions do have absolutely a lot of value.
And I mean the rules of chess in that sense. I mean, look, I could be completely wrong using the rules of chess, and if Steve McRae were here, he might be correcting me. So I'm very willing to say that I could be wrong about this. But just like the rules of chess exist and they affect like how you play that game, right? I mean, but it's not. I think in the same way that they're still conceptual, right? I mean, maybe I think they are. I don't know.
No, it's true. All right, let's go here. Share.
how do these opinions don't do that? I mean, the opinions have effect on how I live my life in that sense of the word.
I mean, I usually make decisions based on my opinions, but my
Sure,
opinions themselves aren't. My opinions don't make something more true or less true or anything like that. It's just,
see, it's not about making something more true or less true. We're not trying to say it's I'm beat a dead horse with this. I gotta stop saying because we're just still there's no monster in their bed. That's what the problem is. He's thinking my opinions have something to do whether morality is true or not. That's not what my opinions are. What morality is. My morality is based on emotions, opinions.
So when I hear you talk about morality,
it has nothing to do with true or false opinion. That's the problem.
I think it does in real life. I think that like when I'm driving my car and I think it seems safe for me to drive and turn left now, and so I turn left because of my opinion. As I do it, I'll find out if my opinion was based upon reality or not.
Okay, but yeah, we can't get there with morality. So with that,
I think we can, but in your worldview,
yeah. But I'm happy to hear that argument to see how that is. But I mean, once again, you look at all these things that you guys will claim as moral.
See, and he's not going to provide evidence that objective morals exist, that there's moral realism. He's just going to, like he says, he thinks he can do it, but he doesn't bother to do it. And this is where I'm going to get into some of the contradictions of what's happening.
With the more, like he is going to claim slavery is immoral, but then I see God does it, right? I see God order people to kill babies at certain points of the Old Testament, right? We have all types of, like, God loves children, but yet numerous times in the Bible, this perfectly moral God that you guys are looking to as the standard, but yet he orders human beings to harm them. So, like, it's so riddled with contradictions that I'm not quite sure, like, when you say something's good, it has, like, in my worldview, my moral opinion, harming children isn't good.
Wait,
Christian
this is where
sometimes it's good.
I feel like you're contradicting yourself when you say morals don't exist, and then you go, in my moral opinion.
No, real moral. I feel like I shouldn't. I just feel like I'm just repeating myself over and over. I think I've gotten the message out. I think Mike at this point, I think I correct him, but I make a point like, dude, I'm saying subjective morals exist. My moral system exists, and I don't think he's grasping that. I think I don't know.
No,
in my opinion, that's not good.
No. Objective morals don't exist. Moral realism doesn't exist. You can have morals without moral realism.
This to me seems like a nonsense statement.
Sure, that's just your opinion. That's fine.
It is my opinion, but everything I think is my opinion.
That's not an argument. Just telling me that I sound like nonsense isn't an actual argument against it.
Well, it seems like that one of the worst things you can say about someone's worldview is that it is self-defeating, right? Internally contradictory to the point where, well, whatever's true, that can't be it because it contradicts within its own self.
Now, pay attention. He's never going to clearly articulate where my morals are contradictory or how my worldview is contradictory. This argument's made quite a bit by Christians, but they don't actually point it out and show you where it's actually contradictory.
And I think that your worldview here on morals does that, and I'm glad it does. I'm glad you're not like nothing's right, nothing's wrong in the story.
Contradiction. What's the actual contradiction?
You say that morals don't exist, yet you make moral judgments all the time.
No, I say that. No. I say that objective.
See, listen to that. You say morals don't exist, but you make moral judgments. You don't have to have the moral realism, objective morals, the way he's describing it in order to be able to make moral judgments. It's so frustrating. The more I watch this, I'm like, man, he really didn't understand what was going on here. He doesn't understand these terms, which is surprising for me, who's someone who dedicates a whole YouTube channel to arguing apologetics and Christianity. It's sort of ironic.
Morals.
Yeah, real moral. Can we use the word real?
Yeah, that's fine. So I say that real morals don't exist. So can I not have subjective morality? Is that not possible?
That would be like pretend reality.
No. Morals, see, the problem is you're defining morals as being real in the first place. And then when I tell you that morals aren't real, you're like, well, no, then your argument is like, then they're not real. Well, of course they're not real.
So what if ice cream cones weren't real, right? And then you proceeded to say, well, I have subjective imaginary ice cream cones. And then I would say, okay, well, then don't use them in real life if they're not real. Or what if
cones are real? That's the problem.
Yes, can you? And that's my view of morals.
See, it's. He keeps just thinking. He keeps just going to his own worldview. Just because I say that morals don't exist in the context he's saying them, doesn't mean that I don't have a moral system. That's really all this breaks down to, and why his argument keeps failing here.
Let's do this. Can you
I think we're
demonstrate
about
that objective
to the
morals
point where
exist?
we're going to stop this anyways. Is about.
I don't.
So here's the key. So I don't know if you guys caught that. I asked him to demonstrate objective morals.
Internally contradictory to the point where, well, whatever's true, that can't be it, because it contradicts within its own self. And I think that your worldview here on morals does that, and I'm glad it does. I'm glad you're not like nothing's right, nothing's wrong in a story.
The contradiction. What's the actual contradiction?
You say that morals don't exist, yet you make moral judgments all the time.
No, I say that. No. I say that objective morals don't
Yes,
exist.
real moral. Can we use the word real?
Yeah, that's fine. So I say that real morals don't exist. So can I not have subjective morality? Is that not possible?
That would be like pretend reality.
No. Morals, see, the problem is you're defining morals as being real in the first place. And then when I tell you that morals aren't real, you're like, well, no, then your argument is like, then they're not real. Well, of course they're not real.
So what if ice cream cones weren't real, right? And then you proceeded to say, well, I have subjective imaginary ice cream cones. And then I would say, okay, well, then don't use them in real life if they're not real. Or what if
cones are real? That's the problem.
Yes,
can you
that's my view of morals.
Let's do this. Can you demonstrate that objective morals exist?
I think that our moral intuitions are really strong evidence that morals really do exist. Yeah.
Say that again one more time.
So I'm going to talk about this. Is the same argument IP had made, which was basically saying an intuition, which I couldn't get. It took me almost an hour and a half to get IP to define what an intuition was. It basically comes down to it's a feeling. I just feel that this is wrong. I feel that Dr. Josh will be back here in just a second. He had some internet problems. So basically all he's saying is like, I feel that these things are wrong when I see them. I have this intuition that they're wrong when I see them. I don't know how you think that points to the morals being mind independent, rooted in God's nature. Just your feelings and how you perceive them and how you perceive these things. All right.
I think my moral intuitions, like that kind of when I see actions, it seems as though I'm perceiving moral qualities that are attached to those actions and behaviors. So when I see somebody do some terrible thing, I feel very strongly, not just emotionally, but intellectually, that has a moral quality of wrongness to it, or a moral quality of goodness to it. And these perceptions are as ingrained as my perceptions on many other things. So I think that when I look at that and go, it's not just me, like this is kind of universal. It's kind of worldwide. We all feel this way. Even people who...
But we don't. We all have different morals, different moral systems. We don't all feel this way. This is just generalization, not based in evidence.
Reject morality have these same perceptions. They just don't. They just say, yeah, but I think I'm delusional about it or whatever.
It's not what we say. We don't think we're delusional about it. We just feel morality is rooted in our opinions and emotions.
I think that those perceptions are based upon reality. Yeah.
Basically, you just described your worldview as subjective because it's based on your emotions. Saying that I feel this way. I feel that this is wrong.
I specifically said it was more than my emotion.
Okay, well, you said intuition, so define intuition for me. What does that mean? When you have an intuition about something.
Let's see if he can define intuition. We'll see if that goes in the same boat as IP did when I had a conversation with him or debate with him.
Being wrong, what does that actually mean to you?
Sorry, I don't know if I'm ready to give you like a philosophical definition of intuition right now.
Just tell me what you mean by it. You don't have to give me like a whole philosophy, but when you just say something like, I feel something's wrong, and then you use the word intuition, is inspiring philosophy actually said something very similar to this when I was in debate with him. But then when I tried to get him to define what he meant when he said he felt an intuition about something.
Yeah, I just mean the basic dictionary definition of intuition. I'm not trying to trump you with something weird. I'm just talking normal English language.
Oh, what does that mean?
I mean, you can look it up if you'd like.
Well,
I feel like this is just a dodge to like.
No.
You're trying to pin me to the definitions of my words instead of dealing with them.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
Oh yeah, I want to understand what you're saying, man. Like that's the problem. Is a lot of times I have conversations with people, and half the times when we get in these serious debates or arguments, because we don't understand what each other is trying to articulate. It happens all the time. There's miscommunication often that happens. So I'm just trying to get him to give me a clear definition of what he means when he says intuition. And he's basically separating that from emotion, the feeling of it. So I want to know what it means.
understand what you mean so we can have an actual like fluid conversation, because if I don't actually understand what you mean by things, I can't really talk to you. I can't understand what you're trying to say. I'm not trying to just get you in a certain position, but I really got to understand what you mean by these words. And I think half of the times when we have, when I talk to different people, half the issue is that people, when they get mad and they argue with each other, is they don't really understand what the other person's trying to articulate to them. So when you say you have an intuition or something, first, you said you feel that something's wrong when you see it, right? So the intuition part, what does that mean when you say you have an intuition about it?
There's a mental awareness of a rightness or wrongness quality to the thing that I'm viewing. Just like there's I might have a mental awareness of beauty. Although I would argue, like if I
it's so funny he uses beauty, because beauty is so subjective. What I find to be beautiful can be very different from what you find to be beautiful. It's really kind of like telling that he uses that word. He uses that as an example.
See something beautiful, I go, wow, that has this quality of beauty to it. But I would argue that is like way lower on the scale of.
And the qualities of beauties are just things that we've come up with as human beings. Like we have things in our head that make women beautiful or make men handsome, right? Like I love tall women. I love tall black women. I'm married to a tall black woman. It's my cup of tea. It's what I enjoy in life. So I'm attracted to tall black women. My wife's 6'3". It's black. She's beautiful. So that's the kind of woman I'm into. So Mike may have a very different opinion on the kind of women he's into. And what's that based on? It's based on our emotions, our opinions, our experiences, what we like. It's just like food. Maybe you like pineapples on pizza. Maybe I think you're a disgusting fuck for liking something. So that's such an abomination to mankind. But hey, he eats his own.
Intuitions or, perceptions than the moral scale. The moral scale is incredibly strong. Like, for instance, if you saw, I won't tell the story, it's for the sake of the family, but somebody had seriously hurt one of my family members, right? And they came and told me about it. And as they told me what happened, there's a very strong moral component to what went on, right? I'm not just mad because I lost a video game. You're not just angry because you're not getting your way, but rather you're perceiving a moral quality. And
I don't think that's really what's happening. I think when it's someone you love, you just care more about them and you have a stronger emotional connection to that person. And when somebody does something horrible to them or harms them, you have a larger emotional reaction to it. So I don't think Mike is being dishonest here. I think that he's trying to replace emotions with some kind of intellectual quality that I think doesn't exist. Yeah.
At least that's the impression I have, and it's the impression that seems to be fairly universal throughout humanity. So I'm just saying that I think unless you assume total naturalism, right? Because I don't know how to explain that on naturalism. Yeah. But if you are open to the possibility of the supernatural, and you see all of humanity perceiving this, then you go, well, it's kind of a universal perception of humanity. That seems pretty strong evidence to me.
I would say that I think there is no what you're talking about in universal. I think when we look at actual reality, most of the world has a lot of different morals, right? For instance, one of the great ones that I realized when I left the Christian faith was the whole gay thing, right? I was just taught that through my church that homosexuality was immoral, and because I kept going to church, kept listening to them, and I was kind of sucked in through all the music and the emotion and don't get me wrong, a lot of good people at church, a lot of good camaraderie and stuff like that. But there was no real reason for me to feel that homosexuality was wrong. And as soon as I left that religion, I realized, like, wait a minute, this is just what they told me. This is just what they taught me, or this is just what I read in the Bible, basically. I think most people, if they're not taught that homosexuality is wrong, they don't feel that it's wrong. And you can do this with a lot of different things. I mean, you look at.
All right, I think I've had enough of this. I don't know. How long have we gone? Should I keep going? I feel like we're.
Sorry about that.
No, you're all good.
I think Lord Rael was, bringing down some curses upon me or something, knocking on my internet.
Oh man, yeah. I don't know. I feel like I've just said enough about morality tonight. I don't know if I want to go any further. Let me see if there's anything else interesting that really. I think we go into slavery real quick.
There's still a belief that there's something right or wrong about it. Like those who disagree.
No, I think I'm good. No, I've had enough of reviewing the morality part of this debate. You guys should watch it. If you guys want to watch it, straight up on my channel. Conversation with Mike Winger. It's fantastic. It's actually did pretty well this week. Like I think almost 2,500 views, which is awesome. But we'll be doing a second part to this soon, and we got to get another Bible study done. God, we are so behind, Josh. This is all my fault. Slacking and doing family stuff.
I know, having a life
with morals, trying to love my family and be supportive and caring.
But you really can't be moral because you only have subjective morality. So.
I'm just talking about opinions. I'm just talking about my opinions on whether it's nice for me to spend time with my family. All right. What do we got coming up? So obviously, sometime soon we'll figure that out, Josh and I. Probably next couple of days, we'll go ahead and do our second part, which is going to be really a good educational lesson. It's going to be about the arguments that are made about slavery in between Mike and I. But I think that there's also going to be just very educational. Josh has been doing a lot of study into slavery and the ancient times, and I think we're going to really learn a lot as an audience. And I'm really looking forward, to it. And then we'll do our final episode of the review, which will be based on genocide, which is the third part. Real light topics, genocide, slavery, morality. It's real light topics here on on the Skylar Fiction Show. I think that's it, guys. If you want to come on the show, skylarfictionshow@gmail.com. We got more material coming up. Don't worry, I'm still here. I'm making videos. We're keeping growing. If you guys want to do me a solid, thumbs up the video. Share it. If you haven't subscribed, I don't know what the fuck you're watching for. At least subscribe. Show some love. And I of course have a Patreon if you want to donate. Other than that, until next time, folks. Make sure you watch Dr. Josh's channel, Digital Hammurabi. It's in the link in the description. But until next time, subscribe. Make the world a better place.